Hi, everyone. Sorry. So my name is Nick, and welcome to the RCSI Wellcast, which is the official podcast of RCSI. It's been a long time coming, so I'm glad we're finally able to get this going. So basically, we're here to bring you the inside scoop of all things happening around the school, particularly the student perspective about things. We're giving a platform to all students and staff to kind of weigh in on what they want to be talked about. So in the end, this is a student podcast, so we want to hear from you. So you can always get it through our QR code. But yeah, we're really excited, and we're really lucky to have our Compass team here. You guys want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so it's Noel O'Callaghan, so Head of Student Development and Wellbeing.
My name is Emma Daly, and I'm one of the student welfare officers on the Compass team.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I thought it would be really fitting to start off with the Compass team because they've been really instrumental in helping me start off the podcast. So thank you so much for that.
Pleasure to be with you.
So I think the first thing I think I want to talk about is about Compass, right? So I think a lot of students, I remember my first day coming here to even the beginning of this year or last year, Compass has always been really supportive, but we weren't really too sure about like what Compass is about. And I know now all the sources and all the support Compass offers, but if you can kind of go into a bit more about Compass and what it's about.
Yeah, I think we need to get better within Compass and RCSI actually to continue to promote the ins and outs of the offering of Compass, right? So Compass is, it's sort of my high-level language, is for student supports, which differentiate from student services, right? So if you need career development support around licensing exams or personal statements or what pathway, interview skills, all of those things, you go to Compass for career development support. If you have a disability and want to register with the service as a LAF service, so learning access, facilitation, you come and register if you need support in that regard. And then where Emma fits in is the welfare service that to me is just a high-end service when it comes to really supporting students' well-being here at RCSI. And I think the message I would give is to think about timing of engagement and all of those things. The services are there. I don't think students should use them when they are in a panic moment. I think they should have that prep work done up front. Know your way around. Where do I want to be when I am going into year 3? Where do I need supports? If I do, how do I get them early enough? Those sort of things. But that's the sort of breadth of the Compass services. And with the wellbeing service being, I suppose, hybrid, I said there's a fairly good appetite for online supports now as well. And do you want to talk about, is there a good mix of online engagement versus in person?
Yeah, I think up until this point, a lot of students have preferred to meet online. I think it's been easier for them. It kind of takes the effort out of, having to go into college and, sit down in front of somebody. But I think as we're like coming out of obviously COVID and getting more into even just student life in general, I think students are more willing to come forward and kind of sit in front of someone and get the nuances of in-person conversation and accessing support that way. But you still obviously get the people that would like to meet online, or maybe it's nice to have the flexibility in terms of busy schedules to be able to accommodate both. But I'd say it's probably 50-50 now at this point.
Yeah, I definitely think it was really with COVID happening and it was all online, it was a bit of a learning curve. But I do think a lot came out of that being like, you could have these like online sessions and sometimes it's a little scary going in person and having these in-person one-to-one talks when online you could kind of be in the comfort of your own home. So I think that was something that was really good came out of it. Another thing I want to bring up is just with Spectrum Life, I think that was a really, really, really unique opportunity or unique program that came out of Compass. I know we've talked about it before. So I do think that's a really cool thing that we've brought up.
Yeah, and Spectrum, so for the students who may not have registered yet, there's 500 students who have registered, which is great. Keep coming. Spectrum is our Compass Student Assistance Program. So it's a 1-800 number. It's an online platform that supports students from a counselling service when you need it, but also nutrition, sleep, exercise. It allows you to share diet cooking plans and I suppose gives you a full suite of, very tied to RCSI's lifestyle medicine certificate that's been embedded into the new curriculum in medicine. I think that is accessible to physio and pharma as well. That really promotes these sort of pillars of being well.
Yeah.
And if people get into the habit of, it doesn't have to be through spectrum, but whatever it is that works for someone, how do you boost each one of these pillars? You know, am I drinking enough water? Am I drinking too much of other stuff? Am I in control of my substance intake? Am I eating well, sleeping well, exercising? And am I partaking in sort of things that nourish me? I think if we can get into the habit of doing that, through spectrum or otherwise, and spectrum was a result of 2 successive welfare officers, student union welfare officers, and then hit home with your support. So it's been a while in the making, you know, getting a business plan together and putting it in. So it's for students.
I would really recommend it too, because at least for myself, I always had these apps where it was like, there were many different apps where it's like the gym app, the eating app, and then it's like you check your Apple Sleep as well. So it's 3, right? So for me, Spectrum really helped me, where it was one-stop shop almost, where it was everything in one, and you could also have accessibility to the RCSI supports as well.
Yep.
So with that, I found that really helpful. So highly recommend. So I think the next thing, and I guess like being a student here for, I guess it's foundation year to my final year, is I guess like mental health support. So at least for myself, it was going from foundation year where you will not do your own thing, but you kind of will go on each program with all your students, and you won't compare yourself, but you'll almost kind of, you know, be along your group, and you'll be around hyper successful students almost, and across all years. But I think it is a common theme where most students across all programs will have some sort of, either you're really anxious when exam time comes around, or you feel a little sad, other like from being away from home or something like that, right? So I think mental health is a really interesting topic around RCSI. So I guess from a staff perspective, how do you feel that the conversation of mental health has been around RCSI, and how do you think it's kind of progressing in that way?
I think the conversation is fairly, if not advancing. So I tried to make it a long way through the podcast without giving statistics, but here's some statistics. The number of people who are now willing to engage in welfare conversations has doubled over 5 years, right? So that's a really healthy thing. And then, so engaging in the supports, people are saying, that's up 100% as well from before, the 120%. So people are willing to engage, or feel as if they're willing to engage when they need it, and then evidenced by attendance is up as well. But I think it's medicine and health sciences in particular, I think there is this inherent, I'm not going to say pressure, but comparison, this race in inverted commas that students see themselves getting into from the very start. And I think that is something that we need to start talking about more. I think the conversation has got to turn to, you know, they're doing a lot at RCSI with regard to resilience and self-advocacy and agency, and that's healthy. But I think we need to have a broader conversation on, you know, the race here is really run at your pace. What the other people are doing are some way relevant, but not the main thing at play is how you run your race, and it's only you. Because we get into very early conversations on where you want to match to. You know, I was speaking to you and some of your production team about this earlier on. Michael, thank you for your production. And, you know, they're appropriate conversations to be having at, you know, maybe year 3, year 4, year 5. But year 1 and year 2, you really should be about growing your knowledge, you know, having a college experience, making friends, having fun, and passing exams and doing well and all that. But those other conversations around the race that needs to be run, they can wait. And I know a lot of students are having those sort of sensible conversations now to say, you know, I'm going to sit that one out this year. Which is quite brave from a pack mentality.
Yeah.
And takes a lot of maturity. So I would welcome more conversations around that. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We'll have more to do.
Yeah.
And a long-winded way of saying that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think like reflecting back now, you almost reflect on like your younger years where you were like, oh, there was a lot of time to kind of enjoy yourself. But at the same time, I think like that's one of the main reasons why I think the podcast, I wanted to reach out to students to kind of, sometimes these like messages aren't published everywhere and posted everywhere. So I think hopefully you can take that away from it. It kind of goes into my next thing, I guess, across all years from your first or to your final year, whether it's homesickness or the program is very difficult or it's friends or it's kind of that all those topics, I think most students will have some sort of setback and some sort of roadblock where they're stuck and they don't really know how to get around it.
Right.
And there's no one clear answer to say how do you get around a roadblock or how do you get around a setback. But I guess when those students come to that point where they're kind of at a standstill, I guess what would you want to tell those students, and what's the best thing I guess they could do at that point in time?
Yeah. I wish if you want to take, because I have loads to say on this one, but so you
We can share.
you go first.
Yeah, well, we often meet students where they're at a point of crisis, and like I suppose within RCSI there are a lot of international students who are away from home, and even if it's you're still within Dublin but you're living away from home, it's still a new experience. I suppose any advice I would give to someone who is maybe feeling homesick or anxious about being in university, your first year, it's a whole new world. Dublin is a big bad city. Just kind of try your best to immerse yourself into college life, but still kind of manage that relationship with home, but be realistic about it. Don't say no to new social interactions. Do the things that you enjoy and make time for them. Because it is really important that you kind of establish yourself in this new network and in this new city. And if it is a place that you're going to be for a while, and kind of like setting up that base, like, doesn't happen overnight, and it will take a bit of time, but it's just about kind of making the time for both and understanding that you do have that like network at home, but not like to the point where you're relying on it solely and make up these new networks and new connections in your new place.
Right.
But I think trying to be as social as possible, do all of your activities that you would normally do, focus on all those pillars of life like your nutrition, your sleep, your exercise, and those things will gradually come. And just understanding them, like kind of being kind to yourself that it does take time, and it's a universal experience. It's hard for everybody, and you kind of need to be all in it together in a way.
Be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, I agree with all of that. And for setbacks specifically, I think we forget sometimes that, let's just say it's an exam. After a long case exam or after an exam results that are issued or after an OSCE exam or something like that, there is a notable uptick in welfare activity, which tells us that a lot of people are then dealing with that setback. So first of all, great, you're reaching out for help and something's happened and there's a setback. But secondly, I think what's really interesting for me is that people take that setback and put it entirely on themselves, right? Instead of actually realizing that in any particular situation, let's just say an exam, that there's a load of circumstances at play. I mightn't have slept well, the content mightn't have suited me, the questions mightn't have suited me, I could have felt a little bit sick, the lecturer who I met a week ago could have given me a steer that I followed and it didn't work. I could have had a blow up with my boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever the night before, or I could have, there's so much at stake, or there's so much at play, that we forget about all those things and say, I failed that exam.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to swear on? I failed.
Yeah.
And I failed. And it's internalized, it's personalized.
Yeah.
Instead of actually getting into the mindset of, that set of circumstances just didn't work out for me. Now, I'm not saying that we are borderline sort of psychotic about this, that we don't recognize that we may have done something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But the chances are more likely that one of those circumstances went against me,
Yeah.
And I know which one it was. I wasn't at my best, actually, or I didn't actually eat well that morning, or I felt off, whatever it is. And you kind of go, okay, I'll get that set for the next time. You learn from it, you dust yourself off, and you go again. Now, that's easy said and done, but I think if we're and maybe it links back to what Emma said about saying yes to opportunities. If we take risks more and safely, appropriately, come out of our comfort zones more, get used to failing a little bit, take risks, fail better, know that that in your profession, this is going to happen to you every day. There's going to be things that come across your desks, that come across your care, that is not going to go well. And I think getting into the habit of that early, and I think that comes with joining clubs and socks and going for walks or trying something new and failing better and doing all those things and getting used to then dealing with setbacks. I think it's a brilliant practice.
Yeah.
And it's a habit. It's sort of like muscle memory for me that and I'm still not great at it. I still dealing with failure is still something that tests me.
Yeah.
But I'm getting better at it. I think we can all sort of do those things and try and flex that muscle a little bit.
It's definitely a gradual process.
Yeah, really. I actually really love that term, fail better. I think that it's such a cool saying because you'll hear the word fail and you'll associate with like negative connotation and you'll think of it as a step back, and it's a very negative term. But when you think of fail better, it makes a lot more sense that when you fail, it's meant to kind of make you reflect even more, and kind of like it's okay to happen almost.
Or not, yeah, no, that word, not yet.
Yeah.
Or not there yet.
Yeah.
I read somewhere that's one of the assessment categories that students are getting back in some universities.
Yeah, it's also like competent, not
competent, not yet.
Yeah.
Or not there yet. I think it's just brilliant because it gets them into the mindset of there's something that you need to do here, as opposed to I failed. That sort of thing.
And attach it to your self-worth then as well.
Yeah.
Because there is that kind of like, we all want to come out of something thinking that we gave our absolute best, and maybe afterwards it can help met our own expectations of ourselves. It can be quite disappointing. And then you internalize that disappointment, and then it can spiral from there. But I think it's just about being able to regroup after that, look at the failure or something went wrong, look at it in a productive and honest way, and look at the things that you can maybe regroup and look at differently, and understanding that failures or setbacks will happen inevitably in every aspect of life, in your course, in your relationships, in your family life. It's going to happen. And failure and success they're on the same path. And I think recognizing that is really important too.
Am I allowed to throw this back at you a little bit?
Yeah.
Because, indeed, you mentioned earlier on about, we're in a class of high achievers from all around the world, and the pace is hot from the very start. At some point, you must realize then that actually, I need to stop comparing. Was it a setback? That how did you get into that frame of mind of not that exact moment, but actually, I will sometimes not do as good as I thought I was going to do or I set out to do.
It's funny. I actually like through from foundation year, I think, to final med, it's been kind of that high competitive, you know what I mean? That you're in that high stress mode.
Yeah.
I think it was a real shift in culture in final med where it was kind of like, it was like this global understanding where it's like everyone has to do what they have to do.
No.
I don't think there was one major thing that made me stop comparing. It was kind of just, you kind of have a sense of realization where it's your last year and you're kind of like, you know what, you kind of just need to do what your plan is, and if it doesn't work out, you just adjust and you kind of just reflect on you have time and kind of go into that way.
Yep.
But it's interesting that, it took me to my final year to kind of reflect on that and to be like I guess through first year to this year, it's like there's like an RCSI way, at least since I'm Canadian, so it was like the RCSI way for North American is you do your American board exams and you kind of go along this step 1, step 2, whatever. And I think it was only until this year where I was like, what about like my way, and what about like everyone has their own kind of way about it, but definitely was a bit late, but I mean, like, at least that happened right.
Yeah, no, I know that. Yeah, and it's your race.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but I guess that takes me to the next thing where it was like, I think from like in each program, physio, pharmacy, medicine, each year, I guess, at least for me, I was told from my first day here till even now, while you're here, like make sure you have a work-life balance and make sure you're optimizing your student experience while studying really hard. And I took that and I thought I understood it. But then I think 2 weeks into foundation year, I was just studying. I didn't do much else. And I still, you know what I mean? Like you know what it means to surface level, that you have to study and like kind of enjoy yourself at the same time. But I guess the whole work-life balance is it's an unknown definition, almost unknown word, where you kind of just have an idea what it means. So I guess with a new student or with a student currently in RCSI, like what are some steps to make that work-life balance? Because I guess you see students now and we're studying day and night, right? So I guess what are some steps that we could maybe work more towards getting that?
Yeah.
Again, there's no what.
No, there's not, but it's a really good question, because I do think, I think if people were to cover everything in each of those three curriculums to the detail that they felt that they knew, they'd never you could study endlessly. You could always be studying. So I think there's something about, that sort of 80-20 rule. If you're doing if you can do 20% of the work to cover 80% of the content, right? And then chip a bit about how much more you need to get into it, especially in the early years where they mightn't count to your final award, right? So do you really need to be doing all those hours that you mentioned? And that's a really tough question to ask yourself when you're witnessing maybe friends and peers doing that. But I think there's the maturity of asking yourself, is it right for me? Secondly, I think work-life balance for me actually ended up putting something back in, not taking it out. So I was working my ass off, and I kept thinking that I need to take something out of my work. But what I needed was to put something back in. So for me to get more balance, I put in more exercise, or I put in more sleep, or I put in more time on the phone to people who know me and care about me, and I think so. That's one aspect. I think it doesn't always necessarily mean something needs to come out. Something nourishing going back in is helpful. And the second thing is spotting what's good for you, right? And being good for the people around you actually nourishes you as well. I'm sharing this for a reason, that your primary circle are probably your, for most of us is our, let's say parents, brother, sister, best mate from home, the people who are in that primary, and they know you since you were high, but they don't know what is going on in your current existence. They just know, I know Nick's good, because Nick's always been good, right? He's generally been good, and he's fine. But I think the group around you, the group in your class, your peers, you're the secondary group, I think, but you're the most important group in the sense that intimately what everyone is pretty much going through with regard to the study, the demands. So I don't think the trick is to compare to others. I think the trick is to check in with others.
Yeah.
How are you doing? You don't seem a little bit off. Or share with others, I'm really under on this topic. Can you help? So I think your primary supports, as much as we offer loads within RCSI, which we can touch on today, we could touch on in future editions, but the primary supports, I think, as you are connection within your groups, connection within, whether it's, year 2 medicine or year 1 physio or learning community XYZ, whatever it is, I think that's the most important thing to get balance, because you could understand that you're not alone in this, that you've got someone to share it with, and you've got your eye on each other. I think that's probably the most important piece. Anything on?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think you kind of need to understand your own needs.
Yeah.
Like what might work for you is not what's going to work for everyone else. Yeah. And like studying until burnout is just not sustainable.
Yeah.
And it's not a habit that it's like it's not going to be doable over a prolonged period of time. And I often meet with some people, and even taking 15 minutes out of their day for a cup of tea and to sit down and just breathe is a challenge. And I think that's a culture around studying in general. And I think there are supports there to kind of tap into about making your study schedule, study smart, You know, like if you're not getting sleep, and then you know you might go to an exam the next morning, and then you're just exhausted afterwards, and you're not good to yourself, you're not good to anyone else around you, you're not good to anyone. So it's just about understanding your needs, what works for you. It's trial and error as well. Like, don't be afraid to branch out and try something new. Or I was in school, I used to reward myself with, like, you know, 5 minutes of air or a chocolate, or, you know, okay, I worked really hard on that for an hour, so I'm going to actually reward myself for that. And that's another thing, is like punishing yourself for the things that you haven't done, rather than rewarding yourselves for the things you have done. And that's a good mindset to get into.
Definitely.
Can I add one other thing? I think we're very good at laying out at the start of the week, you know, what our study plan is going to be for the week. And I think if we can get into the habit of building into that plan for the week the 5 minutes of airtime or the 1 hour of exercise, build it into the phone call to family back home or whatever else. So get into the habit of building balance into your week, as opposed to on Monday I'm going to study and I'm going to study until I sleep. and
just demotivated.
Okay. Yeah. So build the balance into your timetable.
Definitely, yeah. But yeah, I think well, thank you both so much. This has been something that I think we wanted to do for a while now. But thank you both so much for taking the time, and we really appreciate it. And thank you all, from Michael to all of us. Really appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Again, we'll be dropping episodes one every 2 weeks, so stay tuned. But yeah, thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite.
Thanks.
Thanks all.
Thanks.